Okay, let's get straight into it. We're doing a deep dive today into a really fascinating passage, 2 Samuel chapter 6.
Absolutely. This is all about King David. He's kind of consolidating his power, establishing Jerusalem.
Right, and a huge part of that is bringing the Ark of God, the Ark of the Covenant, into his new capital city.
Exactly. But as the story shows, this is way more complicated than just moving something from A to B. It's packed with drama.
Yeah, you've got like sudden death, unexpected blessings, and this really public display that causes some serious tension at home for David.
It really makes you look at how they understood holiness and interacting with the divine.
Okay, so let's start with the first attempt. David's serious about this, right? He gathers a huge number of people.
Oh, yeah. The text says 30,000 chosen men. 30,000. That's a statement in itself.
Wow, so definitely a major national event. And the Ark itself,
Mm.
it's described in really specific terms, isn't it?
It is. It's called by the name of the Lord Almighty, who is enthroned between the cherubim. I mean, this isn't just a box.
No, it represents God's actual presence among them. So bringing that to Jerusalem is symbolic, but also feels very literal for them.
Hugely significant. So they're bringing it from Bala of Judah, from the house of a guy named Abinadab, where it had been for, well, quite a while.
And how do they decide to move it? What's the plan?
Well, this is key. They put it on a new cart, brand new. Probably thought that was respectful, you know?
A new cart. And Abinadab's sons, Uzzah and Ahio, they're the ones guiding it.
That's right. Ahio's walking out front, Uzzah's alongside, guiding the cart.
Got it. Big procession, sacred object, new cart.
Yeah.
What's the mood like?
Solemn. Reverent.
Not exactly solemn, no. It's described as this massive celebration, David and all Israel celebrating with all their might.
With all their might. Okay, so full-on joy.
Totally. The text lists instruments, songs, harps, lyres, tambourines, sistrums, cymbals. It sounds loud, energetic.
A real party atmosphere almost. Huge energy.
Definitely. You can almost hear it, can't you? This massive, joyous, noisy procession. Yeah, you can picture it. So everything's going great, this huge celebration, and then disaster strikes.
Right. They get to a place called the threshing floor of Nikon, and the oxen, the ones pulling the cart, they stumble.
Oh, no. So the ark is tilting, about to fall.
Seems like it. And Uzzah, he reacts instantly.
What does he do?
He reaches out his hand and takes hold of the ark. To steady it, right? Seems like the logical thing to do.
Just trying to stop it from falling, hitting the ground?
Yeah.
An instinctive reaction, maybe?
Probably. But the outcome, it's shocking.
What happens?
The text says, the Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irreverent act, and God struck him down right there. He died beside the ark.
Whoa. Irreverent act. That's the specific phrase used. Not helpful act, not protective act, but irreverent.
Yeah, that description is crucial. It frames his action negatively, despite how it might look on the surface, and death is the immediate consequence.
That must have just stopped everything cold.
Yeah.
The celebration. Gone.
Instantly. And they even named the place Perez Uzzah, which means something like break out against Uzzah, marking what happened.
How does David react to this? I mean, his plan just went horribly wrong.
Well, first, the text says he was angry. Angry that the Lord's wrath had broken out like that.
Angry at God. Or just angry at the situation.
It seems like anger mixed with something else because it quickly turns into fear. Real fear.
Understandable, I guess. He sees this happen and thinks, what?
He literally asks, how can the ark of the Lord ever come to me? Like, this thing is too powerful, too dangerous. How can I possibly manage this?
So the whole plan to bring it to Jerusalem is off.
Completely derailed. He's unwilling, maybe too afraid, to bring it into the city of David now.
So what does he do with the ark? He can't just leave it there.
No, he diverts it, takes it aside to the house of a man named Obed-Edom the Gittite.
Obed-Edom the Gittite. So not an Israelite necessarily. Interesting. A temporary measure then.
Seems like it. A place to park the ark, basically, while David figures out what went wrong and what to do next. It stays there for 3 months.
3 months. And what happens during those 3 months?
This is where the story takes another turn. Instead of disaster, something amazing happens.
Okay.
The source says, the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and his entire household because the ark was there.
Bless him. Like financially.
Yeah.
Spiritually.
It seems like everything. The text later mentions the Lord blessed his household and everything he had. Just abundant blessing, directly linked to the ark's presence in his home.
Wow. Okay, so let's pause here. Uzzah touches the ark,
Mm-hmm.
maybe trying to help, and dies for irreverence. Obed-Edom just hosts the ark, and his new life gets blessed.
Exactly. It's such a stark contrast, isn't it? Death for one kind of interaction, blessing for another.
What does that tell us? Is it purely about following the rules? Like maybe the cart was the wrong method from the start. It was supposed to be carried on poles by Levites, right?
That's a strong possibility. The method might have been fundamentally flawed, signaling a lack of proper reverence from the beginning. Uzzah's touch, even if well-intentioned, was the final fatal breach of that sacred space.
So his act being called irreverent,
Mm.
it wasn't about his motive, maybe, but about violating a known boundary, treating the holy as common.
That seems to be the implication. Whereas Obed-Edom, well, he wasn't trying to handle the ark. He was providing its sanctuary, respecting its presence. His posture was one of reception, not intervention.
So the ark's power is immense, dangerous. It's not approached correctly, but a source of incredible blessing if treated with the right kind of respect and maybe distance.
That feels like what the narrative is showing us. Yeah, it's not just about being near it, it's about how you're near it. The protocol matters.
And presumably news of Obed-Edom's blessings gets back to David.
Oh, yes. The text explicitly says David heard about it. He heard that the Lord had blessed Obed-Edom's house because of the ark.
And that changes things for him. It eases his fear.
It seems to completely shift his perspective. He sees, okay, the ark can be a source of blessing. Maybe we just did it wrong the first time. So he decides to try again.
All right, attempt number 2. He goes to get the ark from Obed-Edom's house. What's the atmosphere this time?
Still celebratory. It says he brings it up with rejoicing, but the process is noticeably different.
How so? No cart this time.
No mention of a cart at all. Instead, it says, when those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf.
Those who were carrying. So it's being carried now, likely on poles as prescribed, and sacrifices right away, after just 6 steps.
Yeah, that's incredibly careful, isn't it? It screams caution, reverence, maybe atonement, like, okay, God, we're doing this right this time, step by careful step. A huge contrast to the first attempt.
Definitely sounds more deliberate, more ritually focused. And what about David himself? How's he involved?
Oh, he's fully involved. And this is where it gets really interesting visually. He's wearing a linen ephod.
We're like priestly garb, right? Not his royal robes.
Exactly. And wearing this, he danced before the Lord with all his might.
There's that phrase again. With all his might. Just like the first celebration, but now it's David personally. What did this dancing look like?
The text doesn't give choreography, but with all his might, combined with later reactions, suggests it wasn't restrained. Think energetic, uninhibited, maybe even wild. Leaping, whirling, pure physical expression of joy and worship.
A king publicly letting loose like that. That must have been quite a sight. He's putting his devotion front and center, above royal decorum.
Absolutely. He and the whole house of Israel bring the ark into Jerusalem with shouts and the sound of trumpets. It's a loud, triumphant, joyful success this time.
Success. The ark is finally in the city of David, but not everyone is celebrating.
Right. While this is happening, someone's watching from a window. It's Michal.
Saul's daughter, David's wife. What does she see?
She sees her husband, King David, leaping and dancing before the Lord. And her reaction?
What is it?
The text says she despised him in her heart.
Despised him. Wow. Strong word. So while everyone else is shouting and celebrating, she's looking down, feeling contempt.
Total opposite reaction. She's clearly judging his behavior based on a very different standard.
Okay, but the ark makes it. They set it up inside a special tent David had prepared for it, a new home.
Yes, its designated place in the capital, and David immediately performs more official actions. He offers burnt offerings and fellowship offerings.
Dedicating the space, dedicating the people again.
Seems like it. And then he acts as king and spiritual leader. He blesses all the people there in the name of the Lord Almighty.
And he does something else too, right? Something for the people.
Yeah, it's a really nice touch. He distributes food to everyone, every single man and woman, a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, a cake of raisins.
A royal feast, shared with everyone. It connects the sacred event with communal well-being. A powerful moment.
Very powerful. A moment of unity, blessing, provision, and then everyone goes home.
But the story isn't quite over. David goes home too, presumably feeling good, ready to bless his own household.
And Michal is there waiting for him, and she doesn't hold back.
What does she say?
Oh, the sarcasm is dripping. She says something like, how the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, disrobing in the sight of the slave girls of his servants as any vulgar fellow would.
Ouch. So she calls him vulgar, basically accuses him of indecent exposure,
Yeah.
disrobing. Maybe the ephod seemed flimsy or undignified to her compared to robes, and throws in that he did it in front of the lowest servants, the slave girls.
Yeah, her criticism hits on multiple levels. Lack of dignity, improper dress, lowering himself before commoners, specifically female servants. It's all about appearances and social status for her.
She's focused entirely on how he looked and who saw him, not why he was doing it. How does David respond to that?
His defense is immediate and powerful. He pivots right back to God. He says his actions were before the Lord.
Not for the slaves girls, not for show, but for God.
Exactly. And then he reminds her, quite pointedly, that it was the Lord who chose him, David, over her father Saul's house to be ruler.
Ooh, bringing Saul into it.
Uh-huh.
That's sharp.
Yeah.
He's saying, my legitimacy comes from God who rejected your family, so my worship is my priority.
Pretty much. And he doesn't just defend himself, he actually doubles down. He says he will celebrate before the Lord.
Okay.
And then he says, I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes.
Whoa. He's saying he's willing to look even worse by conventional standards, to embrace humiliation if it means worshiping God fully.
That's what it sounds like. It's an incredible statement. He's rejecting her definition of kingly dignity entirely. His focus is vertical towards God, not horizontal towards human opinion. He'll choose divine approval over social respectability, even his own sense of pride.
That's a radical stance for a king.
Yeah.
And then he turns her insult about the slave girls back on her, doesn't he?
He does. It's brilliant, actually. He says, but by these slave girls you spoke of, by them I shall be held in honor.
So he's saying the very people she thinks he embarrassed himself in front of will actually respect him more for his genuine, humble devotion.
Exactly. He suggests that true honor, maybe in their eyes, comes not from aloof dignity, but from authentic relationship with God, even if it looks messy or undignified. It completely dismantles her criticism.
That confrontation really lays bare the conflict, doesn't it? Royal decorum versus passionate, uninhibited faith. Public image versus private devotion made public.
Absolutely. A clash of worldviews right there in the royal household.
And how does the chapter wrap up this whole episode, especially regarding Michal?
It ends with one final, quite stark sentence. And Michal, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death.
States it as a fact. No explicit reason given, but placed right after this confrontation.
Yeah, the narrative leaves it there, letting the reader draw their own conclusions about the connection between her contempt for David's worship and her subsequent barrenness. It's a somber endnote to her story.
Okay, so looking back at the whole chapter, it's quite a journey. From the disastrous first attempt with Uzzah,
To the unexpected blessing at Obed-Edom's house.
to the successful, joyful, but also controversial second attempt, culminating in that clash between David and Michal.
The approach to the sacred made all the difference. Method mattered, attitude mattered. Reverence was key, but maybe not the kind of stiff reverence Michal expected.
Yeah, it makes you think about what that reverence really looks like. Is it following rules meticulously? Is it about heartfelt passion? Or both?
And it raises questions about the nature of holiness itself. Powerful, dangerous, life-giving, demanding respect, but perhaps inviting joyful, even undignified celebration.
So, thinking about all this, Uzzah's seemingly well-meaning but irreverent act leads to death. David's undignified, passionate, but perhaps more procedurally correct worship is met with success, even if criticized by humans. It really poses a question for you, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Does this story suggest that maybe fervent, wholehearted devotion, even if it looks messy or breaks social norms, is actually closer to what God desires than actions that might seem proper or helpful on the surface, but fundamentally misunderstand or disrespect the divine presence?
Right. Is genuine, maybe even embarrassing passion sometimes more reverent than careful, well-intentioned rule-breaking? Who defines acceptable worship?
And whose opinion ultimately matters more, the onlookers or the one being worshipped? Something profound to chew on there.